the champ of foolish fame. Let's crown the buffoon of the week by name. Comic crown and a goofy streak. The title goes to our champ this week.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody else in between, class is back in session. Welcome back to Buffoonology 101. Gene Baradelli and Ross Galloway here. Ross, what's going on, man?
I'm feeling kind of lucky, Gene. I don't follow the polls, but I have a good feeling about last week.
What do you mean you don't follow the polls? You don't follow and see how our viewers are voting for last week's Buffoon of the Week? You didn't even bother to go to buffoonoftheweek.com to check it out or go on our social medias and vote there? You didn't do any of that?
I love the way you slip it in, Gene.
That's what she said.
To be honest, I did the right thing. I went and cast a single vote, unlike the Baradelli clan. I voted for my guy, and then I let it go, and I leave it into the hands of the voters. I trust the voters.
Well, I know you like the way I slip it in, pal. Let's get to the results, because I don't know how many more innuendos I could take here. The results are in for last week, and congratulations, pal. Ross Galloway dominated Buffoon of the Week. Shri Thanador is your winner, earning a whopping 74.2%. Terry Moran, for me, got 25.8%. So that means, ding, 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 winner, winner, chicken dinner, Ross Galloway gets on the board. Talk to the people, pal.
I couldn't have done it without all of you. Fuck that. Listen, I got lucky. I told you, nobody, even if they didn't watch the clip, the picture you picked on the website of my guy, he looked like a Timu, like Donald Trump or Rod Blagojevich, right? With that hairdo. I knew he was going to win just from the still shot, to be honest.
And by the way, just for the record, we had 93 people vote. My nephew was not one of them this time, so this is a legit 93 as far as I know. And that means we had a bit of a voter increase here for Buffoon of the Week. So thank you all out there for contributing to this little maddening project of ours. And listen, you're entitled to get it wrong every now and then, and I can take an L with the best of them.
Ha! That's loser talk!
I hope it wasn't a pity vote.
No.
Did you vote for me, Gene?
Do I have to admit it? Do I have to admit it?
Don't give me a pity vote. I want to win this thing. I want to win on my own volition.
All right. This was no pity vote, Galloway. You blew me away on YouTube, on X, on the website. It was a little closer. But yeah, this was an emphatic win. Don't worry about it. You're fine.
All right. Because I think I got you this week, too. I can't wait to see who you picked.
You know what? I don't think you do, but I've learned to keep my mouth shut. I've been humbled. This is now officially a competition. And you, sir, are in control of who goes first. Are you going to use the imaginary coin, or are you going to choose another method for who goes first here?
I like to choose my own fate. If I was playing football and I won the coin toss, I want the ball. Give me the ball. I'll go first.
You don't want to hear my nominee and then riff off of that. You want to go first. This is ballsy. All right.
Right out of the gate.
All right. Confident. You know what? I like it. We're going to let you go first. Before Ross Galloway gets started here with telling you about his nominee, let's go over the rules of this little competition we call Buffoonology 101. Before the show, Ross and I have each selected our nominee to present to you for Buffoon of the Week. Each host will have 5 minutes to make their case to you as to why their nominee should earn your vote. The first 2 minutes will be uninterrupted by the other host, but after that, it's a free-for-all between the two discussing the nomination. The opposing host will then evaluate the nominee based on the criteria set forth in my award-winning best-selling book, Schnooks, Crooks, Lies, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores.
This guy is a grifter!
The nominee will then be given a score for buffoonish nature and buffoonish action magnitude on our Sharpton Buffoonery Matrix, but more on that later. After that, we do it all over again for the other nominee. After all the nominees have been weighed and measured, each host will then have 1 minute to plead and beg for your vote for Buffoon of the Week. You'll get to vote online in the comments and on social media and at buffoonoftheweek.com. Vote early and vote often. No one's going to be counting whether you voted more than once. And now, back to the action. Back to the action indeed. And Mr. Gallery, the floor is yours. The clock will start upon your first word.
Start the clock, brother. All right. Last time Gene gave me a bunch of ribbing because I didn't mention the guy's name. I can't even pronounce it last week. So that's why I delayed in telling you. So here's my nominee this week. It's the former First Lady. I'm not going to call her Big Mike because I'm not that kind of a guy. Barack Hussein Obama's wife, Michelle Obama. And it's for an interview she did where she talks about the sacrifices she made for our great country as First Lady. Gene, let's go to the clip, and then I'll follow up on the other end.
It's expensive to live in the White House. As many people don't know. I mean, much is not covered. You're paying for every bit of food that you eat. You're not paying for housing and the staff in it, but everything, even travel. If you're not traveling with the president, if your kids are coming on a Bright Star, which is the First Lady's plane, we had to pay for their travel to be on the plane. It is an expensive proposition, and you're running for 2 years and not earning an income. So all of that was in my mind. How would we manage this? So my fears came from the fact that I thought he could win. Because maybe way in the back of my mind, I was hoping that maybe he wouldn't, that this would be the last thing he would do. But I knew he had it in him to make this happen.
So she's talking about having to pay for food and pay for the travel expenses of her children when they fly on the First Lady's plane. They have a staff, the First Lady, the office of the First Lady, right? The president earns $400,000 a year. All his expenses are paid. If his family's traveling with him on Air Force One, it's always free, right? So it's whatever little crazy thing the First Lady wants to go do. If she's bringing anyone with her on the First Lady's plane, she has to pay for them and not herself. She is one of the most ungrateful, spoiled women in this country, right? She's a black Karen, probably spelled with a Q if I had to imagine. She's Ivy League educated, rich beyond belief. Every job she's ever had in her adult life was a six-figure salary. She talked about not earning any money on the campaign. Gene, as a veteran of campaigns, when you're working on a campaign that actually has money and they're able to raise money like Barack Obama was able to do, they expense everything to the campaign. All travel, their clothing, their haircuts, food, everything. For those 2 years, they were making money. She's talking about, and I'm going to close with this. I don't even need the full 2 minutes if I'm not close. She talks about how expensive it was to be the First Lady, Gene. The balls on this guy, girl, or whatever she is.
First world problems, to be sure. I mean, listen, I know in my everyday life, when I have to fuel up my jet and I have to gather myself together to go on another one of those business trips, I think to myself, man, the extra expense of traveling with a child as we go on these trips. Not for nothing, if anybody's going on a business trip, you have to pay for your kid if your kid's coming along anyway. I know this because my sister deals with this every time she has to go to Texas for a business trip. She doesn't bring the kid. She leaves the kid home, and I got to watch him. That's what the deal is. But seriously, these first world problems, you got to pay for food? Oh, you poor dear. Oh,
Gene,
you
it's not
poor
even
thing.
a first world problem. It's a rich, snobby, spoiled person's problem, right? A first world problem is I have to take the subway into Manhattan to go get something, and I'm bringing my 11-year-old kid, and it's going to cost me another $3 on a Metro card for him, right? Oh, boo-hoo, like you got nice public transportation. It's not nice and it's dangerous, but you have to pay for the kid an extra $3. This is you're flying on the First Lady's plane to go talk about nutritious food or some nonsense like that, and you want to bring your teenage daughters with you to wherever you're going. Yeah, boo-hoo. And you have to pay for your food? Fucking wake up, man. Everyone Everyone's got to pay for their own food.
And you know what? I'll just point out to, not that you need the help here, but I'll just point out that lately the First Lady, Michelle Obama here, been very negative. I mean, she was negative during the first Trump administration as well, whenever she gave a speech back then. But she's been especially negative ever since this new podcasting venture she's been doing. And oh, by the way, nobody's listening. Nobody cares about what she has to say. And that might be playing into it. Also, there's news out there that, the Obamas might be heading for a divorce. There's rumblings out there for that. So maybe that plays into it as well. But either way here, of all the things to complain about, this is like, I'm surprised Bernie Sanders and AOC aren't knocking down her door saying, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, she's out of touch, Gene. And I'll leave it with this. You said like she's just become negative recently. She's always been a negative, evil. Let's just say.
Whoa!
Do you have to bleep that out? Bleep it out. The C word for those of you guys listening.
Thanks for the clarification there, pal.
That's what she's always been, right? When Barack Obama won, she gave a speech where she said, "I have never been proud of this country until this day." Right? We've done lots of good things as a country. You've never been proud of this country? She's garbage. She's trash. She is the buffoon of the week. I win this one.
Ross is reading my book, Snooks, Crooks, Lies, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. In that book, you'll learn all about, right at the beginning, our Sharpton Buffoonery Matrix, the way we measure political buffoons. And for a quick little refresher for those of you who bought the book, or maybe a primer for those of you who haven't yet bought it, the Sharpton Buffoonery Matrix is all about two things: buns and BAMs. Let's talk buns.
My buns!
No, not those. And definitely not those. I'm talking about our personal buffoonish nature. A decade of collective observations has shown that everyone, to some degree, has a bun. You, me, everybody. The size of their buns is directly related to a buffoon's propensity to do stupid things.
Look at the size of that thing.
And then there's BAM, 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 buffoonish action magnitude. That's our measurement of how big a whoopsie a buffoon made. The bigger the mistake, the greater the magnitude. We then plug these values into our Sharpton Buffoonery Matrix, named for the alpha and omega of buffoonery, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Modern problems require modern solutions,
which is our visual representation of a buffoon's bum to BAM ratio. And here's the best part. After we tally up the worst offenders, you decide. You get to cast your vote, share your thoughts, and you determine who earns the dubious distinction of Buffoon of the Week, which we'll record as the weeks go by. So having consulted my book and realizing how awesome it is, I've decided to classify Michelle Obama as one of the more serious levels of buffoon, buffoonicus ambitious, the egotist. Why did I decide to do this? Because there's no denying that the Obamas, including Michelle Obama, has a brain and has some level of political skill here. The problem becomes when they think that they are the smartest and the best people in the room, and their calculations about what to talk about become a little more politically risky. But because they think that they're so invincible because of how great they are and how their shit don't stink, that they lose focus on reality. Now, I could have gone with political narcissist, and I could have gone with hypocrite. Political narcissist didn't really underscore the seriousness of this buffoon, and hypocrite is just too easy to do because everybody turns out to be a hypocrite eventually. So I'm going with egotist here. Michelle Obama, she's not having a good time right now. Her podcast is not doing well. And, there's talk about possible divorce in the offings here. I don't know about all that. What I do know is that she's lost touch with reality, especially when looking at this clip that Mr. Galloway has brought to us. So, buffoonish nature, I'm going to say it's up there because, listen, Michelle Obama's been around for decades in the political spotlight. And this is a pretty big action here as well. So Just for comedic purposes, I'm going with buffoonish nature of 69. And I'm going with a buffoonish acting magnitude of 3.14 because instead of saying let him eat cake, I'm going to let her eat pie.
Well, 3.41 what exactly?
3.14 gigasharptons, man. This is Sharpton-esque out there. This is a big deal. This is her Marie Antoinette let him eat cake moment. And I think this will rile up those in the party who say that they've lost touch with everyday people. I mean, aren't they one of the millionaires out there that Bernie Sanders and AOC are fighting against? You know, the fight against oligarchy and all that. So 69 because it's funny. And it's up there enough that I think it works, especially given her history of past statements and her being a negative Nancy and all that in the past as well. And instead of cake, she gets pie in the gigasharpton range, 3.14 gig. What do you think, pal?
I got to say, Mr. Berardelli, you might run a crooked election, but you do give a fair score in this game.
Listen, I am nothing if not intellectually honest, and that is the name of the game here. Intellectual honesty when dealing with buffoons, no matter who they are, what they are, what side of the aisle they're on. That's what it's all about. For my pick this week, I didn't want to go back to the well. I didn't want to go back to the same old political buffoons out there. I want to introduce everybody out there to the different and myriad categories of buffoons that exist. And one that we haven't touched on yet on this show is the one I like to call the culture warrior. Those are the people coming from Hollywood, TV, movie, musics, coming into the political arena for a second career. And if there's ever been a culture warrior that has been out there trying to enhance their career, such as it was over the past, decades, it's Sean Penn. Sean Penn has been on the negative side of just about every political issue in America since the late 80s. Sean Penn has been riding off of a mediocre career, a failed marriage with Madonna, and now he wants to make a name for himself, or he continues to want to make a name for himself, I should say, when it comes to politics. What is he talking about this time? What everybody in Hollywood is talking about, and that's Donald Trump. I want to show you this clip from Jim Acosta's podcast. Yes, the same Jim Acosta that is on, well, he's not on the cover of the book, but he's featured in the book. He's talking to Sean Penn about Donald Trump, along with Eric Swalwell. If there was ever a trio of buffoonery, this is the triumvirate right here. Take a look at this clip.
We should consider worst case scenarios. And I do think it's a reasonable theory that Donald Trump is not unlike the spouse of someone who leaves him perhaps for another, who then murders their former partner because if they can't have her, nobody can. And I think Donald Trump in his solipsism may have that relationship with the world, and that this destruction is in part a power play and also a literal intention of his final out.
You think he'll try to stay on?
I think he might try to destroy the world before he ages out of life. Because
Jim, I just, in the history of dictators or those who aspire to be dictators, there's never a succession plan, right? There's never, and that's what worries me is if he doesn't believe there's somebody who can protect him, that you will see him ratchet up, what he's willing to do to the country.
First, it was very nice of Sean Penn to broadcast that from his hobo tent in the middle of Times Square while he's smoking a cigarette. And of course, Jim Acosta did nothing to challenge anything that Sean Penn had said there. But the analogy that he gave right there, comparing Trump to a person who's going to unalive their spouse at the end of their life and sort of make like a unaliving pact between the two of them, is completely batshit crazy. Galloway, you can chime in anytime you want to here. But I know you thought you wanted with Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama's a great pick. But I present to you the crazy and the lunacy that is Sean Penn. And I dare you to come back at that.
Listen, well played, my man. That was an amazing pick. I was cracking up throughout that whole thing. I only saw a brief clip of it on TV earlier. That was fantastic. The nerve of that guy. Wasn't he accused of beating Madonna at one point in the 80s too? I could have sworn like that was part of the reason why they broke up. By the way, he dodged a bullet there getting out of that relationship. Here's where I'll say Gene is acting real shady, folks, although it's a terrific pick.
Shady? What do you mean?
Here's the shade, Gene. I saw what you did there. Not only did you have Sean Penn, you got the subliminal messages coming through. You got Jim Acosta and Eric Swalwell on the same panel. I mean, that's like you're triple teaming me here, man. That was tough. It was hysterical, but tough.
You're acting as if I planned that. I didn't plan that. No way I planned that. Listen, some buffoons need support buffoons around them in order to reinforce the point of how buffoonish they are. I do want to point out Sean Penn's history a little bit here. While he's saying all these things about what Donald Trump's character is, please remember that Sean Penn is the same person that called Venezuelan strongman Hugo Chavez an inspiration to him. And we all know what state he left Venezuela in since his passing and what happened under his regime. I don't need to go into it. That's the quality of judgment that Sean Penn has for his characters. It's almost as bad as his judgment for the roles that he picks to play in Hollywood. Almost as bad. That being said, I don't even think, I think this is a self-explanatory one. And I really think that if you are not picking Sean Penn for Buffoon of the Week based on that statement alone and based upon his prior history, then in the words of Ross Galloway, you ain't black. Because this one is a doozy that goes off into the stratospheres of buffoonery. The nerve of this guy with his past history of criminal behavior, as you mentioned, and also his political persuasion being to the left of Che Guevara, to now go and try to character assassinate Donald Trump in that measure, again, from his hobo tent in the middle of Times Square, with Jim Acosta and Eric Swalwell as his accomplices. Folks, I beg of you, this is the pick. This is maybe the thesis, the climax of the thesis of buffoonery. And in my final 10 seconds, I am not going to remind you that Ross Galloway is a cocky duty poopy head. I'm going to remind you of this clip and ask that Sean Penn be your buffoon of the week.
Oh, Gene, man, you made me that. I genuinely like had a good gut laugh with that. Well played, man. All right. So I know the category. I got the book here. It's funny we both landed on it. Help me pronounce these Latin words you threw in here. Bufoonicus celebritas, right? Would be the but the culture warrior, right?
I love those names, by the way. They're so funny.
I love it. No, it's great. It's great. And so when you first said Sean Penn, I'm picturing like, you know, he resurfaces every once in a while, but I'm picturing like 80s Sean Penn. And I was going to be like, he's picking a washed up like loser that is not relevant anymore. But he does resurface every once in a while and say some pretty dumb things. And like saying the president's going to end the country before he dies. Like, it's just absurd, man. For buffoonish nature, I got to go with a 68. Yeah, I'm trying to base it like off of Michelle Obama. You gave her a 69. He's definitely been around longer. I got to give a 68 to be fair. And this is going to shock you, I think, a little bit.
I'm good with that. I'm good with 68 because he's one of those guys, like you said, he resurfaces, but he's also one of those guys that you just sort of discard his opinion because you know that he's batshit crazy. Oh, that's just Sean Penn's talking shit again. So I can understand. I can totally understand. 68 is good.
Right. He looks like a slightly cleaner version of Hunter Biden in that clip. Like, it's just weird.
You know, I didn't even think of that. That's good.
I got Hunter Biden vibes from him. This is going to shock you too. So on the magnitude, the BAM, you threw in a clip that had Jim Acosta and Eric Swalwell. And although if we just do a strict reading of the rules, they should not account for any of this, I have to give some deference there. I'm going to give 2.4 gigasharptons. And it's for the gamesmanship there. You picked an excellent clip with two other losers. When Swalwell made that cameo, dude, I lost it. That was hilarious.
You know what? It wasn't intentionally planned, but when I saw the clip, and the clip's only like a minute long, when I saw the clip pull back to see who's on this show with Jim Acosta. First of all, it was a Jim Acosta show, so I'm like, oh, this is gold. And then Swalwell's there, so I'm like, oh my God.
Right?
You know what? But it's like every other actor. You have the main award for Best Actor, and then you have Best Supporting Actor.
Dude, if you had George Santos in that clip, you would have won the year right here. It would have been over.
Would have been off the charts. Would have been off the charts. We've made our pitches to you, and now it's time for Ross and I to do our final pleading and begging, possibly bribing, to get your vote for this week. Ross was the winner last week, and he has elected to go first once again here. Ross, the stage is yours. I start the clock on your first word.
Start the clock, brother. Listen, guys, you humbled Gene last week going into this week. You got to keep that alive, man. He had the nerve to pick a washed up 80s celebrity as his pick this week. I'm anticipating he's going to pick Cyndi Lauper next week. Like, I'm just dying to see who he picks next week. Sean Penn, he looked like a washed up Hunter Biden in a lot of sense. Yeah, he's a buffoon, but then Gene had the nerve to try and game the system and play a clip with two other buffoons that are bigger buffoons than his own nominee, right? Trying to game the system. I picked Michelle Obama. She is a clown. She is rich, spoiled, black Karen, like I said before. She's complaining about spending money on food and doing the job and working as the First Lady of the United States. Well, why don't you tell that to my friend who's a redheaded roofer in July down south about all the hard work that Michelle Obama has done and about spending money on food and travel for her kids on the First Lady's jet. It's a no-brainer this week, folks. You got to pick my pick, Michelle Obama, Buffoon of the Week.
All right. You went a little overtime there, but listen, winner's privilege. I get it.
Cheater, you're a cheater.
Well, Ross, I'm glad you finally got around to talking about your nominee after all your pissing and moaning about mine. You know what, folks? Forget about Jim Acosta. Throw Eric Swalwell out of the picture. You're left with a buffoon with decades of a track record for being one of the most loony people in politics, in media, in Hollywood. And now here he is again, surfacing like a bad penny, always popping up, to talk about Donald Trump after he pals around with leftist, Marxist dictators. And he has the nerve to talk about the president. You know what? Michelle Obama's got rich people problems. Shocker. Lots of people out there have rich people problems that they want to talk about. That's the weak sauce that Gallery wants to bring here. No, let's remember this is about political buffoonery, not about lifestyle buffoonery. The only pick here is Sean Penn. And I didn't have to take 9 extra seconds, Galloway, the way that you did for your nominee, all right?
That's how it's done.
So let's close the book on another edition of Buffoonology 101. Class, it's time to vote. The polls are open right now. They'll be open all throughout until next week. Tell us who you got for Buffoon of the Week and make sure that it's Sean Penn. Listen, I joke about you having a bad pick there, but it was a good pick. Your pick is it's formidable. People are going to see Michelle Obama's name and they just are going to stop listening. So
they got to vote for Michelle Obama or they ain't black.
Same thing with Sean Penn. Sure. Anyway, go vote now. Good Lord. What do we do?